everybody, and welcome to Plaid Stallion's Toy Ventures. I'm Brian, your host, and this is one of my favorite types of episodes to do because it's a slightly new vintage toy discovery. And on top of that, it happens to be a Mego knockoff, one of my favorite things, and it's made by one of my favorite toy companies in the world, Lincoln International. So let's dig in. Just to give you a little bit of insight, in case you're new to the channel, Lincoln International was a New Zealand-based toy manufacturer that was formed in the late 1940s. Around sometime in the 1960s, they opened a Hong Kong branch and began producing plastic licensed toys and everything under the sun, to be honest with you. In the 1970s, they seemed to be spending a long time copying trends. They were ripping off other people's toy concepts with lower quality versions. The most famous output of this era has got to be their line of monster figures, which are now pricey collectibles on the secondary market. And I have done a video on the Lincoln International monsters, and I will link it here. Their most infamous action figure would be Mr. Rock, possibly the silliest bootleg figure of the 1970s. It's Mr. Spock if he was played by Tony Randall. However, there's not a lot of documentation from Lincoln International. They mainly operated as a hire gun toy manufacturing services to distributors around the world, like Galoob in the United States. That's where we got catalog pictures of the monsters and Mr. Rock from the mid-70s. This, however, is not a good indicator of all of Lincoln's action figure output. It's an environment that is really conducive to surprise discoveries, which, honestly, I both love and hate. It's nice to believe that something could pop up that nobody noticed before, but it's also frustrating when you just can't find the information. I am a bit of an information junkie. Some of the surprise discoveries are characters like Big Bill. This is an Action Jackson type army figure that was sold in a plain brown mailer box with a bunch of different accessories. I've tried over the years to find Bill in catalogs to no avail. If you recognize this guy and can help piece together anything on this mystery, please let me know in the comments. This is something that haunts me. In the late 2000s, the Thrill Seekers appeared. This is another adventure-type line which actually used Mego Action Jackson tooling to copy adventure sets like Parachuting, Army Man, Scuba Diver, and this very obvious attempt at Evel Knievel. Only 2-box Thrill Seekers have ever popped up. I hope we see more someday. Again, there are no catalogs or documentation surrounding these characters. We can guess that they came out in the mid-1970s, and they always seem to come from the United Kingdom. And that leads to our subject today, our discovery here, which first surfaced a few years ago, and I want to tell the story of how it happened because it's not particularly mine to share. A collector named Robert was the first person to find a head, and it was marked Lincoln International, and he began asking people if they knew who he was. We did not. The answer would come a little while later when my friend Steve discovered a listing in an old toy shop from the 1990s. Steve always comes up with amazing research, and I really appreciate him. The ad was for Big Bad John from Lincoln International. This is the thumbnail he sent me. I got really excited because the person who was selling it was also a friend I knew, and I'm also still in contact with, and his name was also Steve, coincidentally. However, it would turn to be a dead end as Steve no longer had any toy records at all, no photos, and no memories. And, he was a major dealer in the 1990s and the 2000s, so, yeah, it's not surprising he doesn't remember one single toy. But we had discovered and named a new Lincoln International figure called Big Bad John, and we knew he came with a gun and a knife, and he had a tattoo on his chest. He was now the rarest Lincoln International figure out there because all we knew there was a head, we knew there was a carded sample somewhere, and that was it. Flash forward another year to when another friend of mine named Andrew won a fantastic lot that included not only 2 Lincoln International Mr. Rock figures, but a loose Big Bad John, the first of its kind. So Andrew went on to replicate the chest tattoo from the thumbnail. It was no easy task, but he was now the owner of the rarest Lincoln International figure out there, and it couldn't have gone to a better guy. And then a carded one appeared. A collector by the name of Rob said he picked it up at a toy show in the 90s, and he's had it sitting on his shelf for 30 years. He never really knew anything about it, but this is the magic of the internet. So who is he? What's he supposed to be? My best guess is he came out around 1976, and I think it was in response to a lot of the cops and robbers type toys that were coming out in the 8-inch scale. I'm talking about Kojak from Excel, Starsky and Hutch from Mego, and LJN's Emergency, SWAT, and the Rookies. He's even wearing a coat very similar, obviously copied from the LJN emergency figures. None of these figure lines, when they came out, had a bad guy to fight. Eventually, Mego would include Chopper with the Starsky and Hutch, who was very similar to Big Bad John in that way. The figure itself is another copy. They have very obviously taken the head from the Gabriel Lone Rangers figures, Butch Cavendish, who was the bad guy in that series, and just sculpted over his hair. So he's got this like Frankenhead that's kind of hilarious. It's they're not even trying. This is obviously supposed to be Butch Cavendish or look like Butch Cavendish. I love the idea of the tattoo on the chest because that's very Dr. Steele. Again, I think this is just very much a Me Too type figure meant to coordinate itself into your action figure play. And it's a brilliant idea, actually, because you need a bad guy. You'll always need a bad guy to fight. And if your figure line doesn't have one, you got to make one. The figure itself comes with a dagger and a gun with holster. So John's really ready to go. Most Lincoln figures did not come with accessories. The exceptions being Mr. Rock, who had his gun and pink radio. The Thrill Seekers had helmets, and Big Bill came with an assortment of weapons that sadly I do not have. Now, as a collector of Lincoln figures, this discovery really made a huge impact on me. I really wanted to track one of these down, but how do you when the thing is so rare? I kept my eyes open, but because both Andrew and Rob were so generous in lending me photos for the website and upcoming magazines, I felt kind of zen about it. You know, I thought, well, that's the part I really like, is sharing the information. So owning one isn't going to be an obsession. And then some good fortune really happened. A friend of mine named John, who is not a big bad John, he's a good John, was at a toy show and found this figure at the bottom of a box full of LJN SWAT figures. Go figure. He sent me a text, wondered if I was interested in it. I said yes. And he asked me to look for some trade items. And I was very fortunate enough to find a pretty special item that he really enjoyed. And we did a fair trade. The day that this figure arrived, I got another email from Rob, the owner of the carded Big Bad John, saying what if I was interested in making an offer for it. We went back and forth for a couple of weeks, and we eventually worked out a cash trade situation, and I think it was a fair deal. It certainly was a comfortable negotiation. I really enjoyed talking to him. And he arrived this week, and what a wonderful turn of events to go from not having one to having a loose and a carded one in the same month. I'm just floored, and also super grateful to both those guys for reaching out to me. What a terrific experience. Just a quick reminder that if you like this channel and want to support it, please consider looking at my publications. We have a new book out called Knockoffs, Totally Unauthorized Action Figures. That's in its second printing. And the 6th issue of our magazine, Toy Ventures, which is based on this show, is now shipping, and it includes a free poster of the ideal Star Team characters. Thanks for considering. So that is my story about Big Bad John. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to learn more about Lincoln International, I do have a Lincoln International gallery that has both John, the monsters, and everything I know at Plaid Stallions, and I put the link below. We also have a Facebook group called Mego Knockoff Headquarters, where a lot of this was discovered. It's a great group of people, and I really enjoy the conversations in there. So you might want to check it out if you're into this sort of thing. That's it this week. Thanks as always for watching. If you're new to this, I hope you will consider hitting like and subscribe. This is what we do. Until next time, be well and talk toys, not other people. Cheers.